Alright, so in this video, okay, this again, as I do in all my videos, I want to introduce what type of video this is because these are on YouTube. This is a video that goes with my crash course of multiplying and dividing decimals. It is specifically used for that class so that the students can go back and watch what's going on. It is not for everybody to understand, just those people in my class. But if you want this workbook and you want the online live teaching of this skill for your student, please check out outschool.com. My name is Tony Redmiles, parentheses, Bryant, and I will, I can be your teacher. It's that easy, that easy. Okay, so we're going to conquer example 25 in the workbook all the way down to 36, okay? Rounding will be its own video, and then changing a percent to decimal will be its own video, and then the word problems will be yet another. There are 60 examples in this particular workbook. So let's go ahead and get started with example 25. Okay, so this is like I have 25 candy bars and I'm cutting up all my candy bars into 0.4 pieces, and then I'm going to look at what I have, okay? So same pattern as always, this 25 and this, I'm going to label them A and B. So A divided by B, A goes inside, B goes on the outside of the divisor. All right, so 25 goes on the inside and 0.04 goes on the outside. Now, it's hard to visualize cutting something up in 0.4 pieces, especially because that's not a one that we can do evenly within the tens place. So we need to have a different way of getting around the fact that this is a little bit hard to visualize. And one way we can do this is by multiplying everything by 10. Okay, so we look at the place value it's in. The 4 is in the tens place. So to get rid of the place value, we have to multiply it by 10. When I do to one thing in math, I have to be fair and do to another thing. It doesn't matter what I do to the numbers as long as I'm fair and systematic and do the same thing across the board. So let me get my eraser here. We are going to start this problem from jump with what we just accomplished in our thinking, and I'm going to switch to black pen. And we are going to first take the problem and multiply everything by 10. Now if I multiply 25 by 10, I'm going to get 250. And if I multiply that 0.4 by 10, it just moves that decimal place one place and it's a 4. Okay, you could do the math out, grab a calculator, whatever you need to double check what I'm telling you, but I'm telling you that if you multiply by 10, it just moves the place value over. If you multiply by 100, it moves it over 2 places, and if you multiply by 1,000, it moves it over 3 places. And I should have showed you that in class if we had the time. All right, so I multiplied everything by 10, or you could look at it as I just moved the decimal place. Now I can finally do some division. So now it's 250 divided by 4. 4 can go into 25 6 times, that's 24. Drop down my 1 that's left over, and the 0. 4 can go into 10. It can go into 10 2 times, which is 8. Gives me left over 2. Amount of digits. Well, remember, once as I have a decimal sign, I can put a 0, because $250 is the same written this way as this way. Those zeros, those trailing zeros, do not change it. So I can put a decimal and start adding some zeros. That way I can finish my problem. 4 can go into 20 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. All right. So it's just as easy as that. This 0.25 is going to be on the outside of my problem. It's being divided into the 10. And I I have to get that decimal out. So right now it has a hundredths place. Okay, the 2 is in the tenths place, the 5 is in the hundredths place, so the last place value is the hundredths place. To be able to get rid of that decimal, I have to multiply it by that place value. I have to multiply it by 100. So 100 times the 10 is going to be 1,000. And if I multiply 0.25 by 100, I get 25. It just moves the decimal 2 places to the place value that it was in. All right, so let's go ahead and set this one up. Okay, so 25 can go into 100 4 times. 4 times 25 is 100. Drop down my 0. I still got to put a 0 here. I know 25 zeros. 25 doesn't go into zeros. You're probably thinking, why? Why do I have to do that? I have to finish in the last place value, okay? Because that's just how many times 25 goes into 100, not into 1,000. I have to go over to the last place value. So I'm going to have to put that place, that say to myself that 25 goes into 0 times, okay? All right, this one has a hundredths place, so I have to multiply it by that place value to be able to get rid of the decimal. That's going to give me 375 with 2 zeros, so actually 37,500 divided by, it's going to push that decimal out 2 places, divided by 3. All right, 3 on the outside. 37,500 on the inside, no decimals, so I can go ahead and start doing my division. 3 goes into 3 one time, and because this is a single digit, I'm just taking it 1 digit at a time. And this one, it was 2 digits, so I went out 2 digits, 10. 100 can't go into 10, then I moved out to the third. So that's how I'm kind of deciding the little chunks that I'm going to take this problem in. All right, drop down my 3. I can go into that 2 times, because 2 times 3 is 6. Bring down my 5. 3 can go into 15 5 times. Again, those zeros, I have to put place values in, okay? So 3 goes into 0 times. And again, 3 goes into 0 times. I've got to put those place value in. Now, I didn't do this with the last one, but I'm going to do this with this one. I want to go back and look at if this makes sense, okay? So remember that when we're dividing by a decimal, remember we talked about this in class, what I'm doing is I'm taking a candy bar and I'm cutting it into small little pieces, okay? Whenever I'm dividing by a number less than 1, I'm taking it and I'm tearing it into pieces and then counting up all my pieces. When I divide whole numbers into whole numbers, I'm grouping them into groups, but when I'm dividing by something less than 0, I'm tearing it apart. So I'm taking that I have 375 candy bars, and I'm cutting my candy bars into 0.03 pieces. I'm going to have tons of pieces of candy bar everywhere, and if I count them all up, it should be 12,500, and that makes sense. It makes sense that it would be such an extravagant answer, okay? All right, let's look at 28. All right, so to be able to get this out, I'm going to have to multiply by 10 because the 4 is in the tenths place. So in this one, I'm going to divide everything by a 10. All right, so my new division problem is 72,120 divided by 24. So let's go ahead and start our division. Okay, so 24 goes into 72 3 times. 3 times 24 is, let's do that, 12 first, 6, 7, it's exactly 72. 24 cannot go into 1, but I need a holder right there in that place value, so I'm going to put a 0. That way I can get over to the next place value of 2, which makes a 12. 24 cannot go into 12. So again, I need a place value so I can drop down my 0. Okay, 24. How many times do we think it can go into 120? Well, we know that it goes 72 times if it's 3, so let's try 5. And it goes exactly 5 times. That one's a hard one. That is why I decided to do it. All right. Now let's look at this answer. Look at this, 3005, and we started with 7,212, but our beginning number was 2.4. So I have a whole number and a fractional value less than 1. So I'm grouping things into 2's, and then I'm cutting those into 0.4. Okay, so I'm doing both. So when this happens, when I'm dividing a mix, we need to have this number sense of where numbers should fall, okay? Because remember I said it's like I'm grouping 2 and I'm splitting up the third one and a little bit of the fourth one, and then I'm grouping 2 and I'm splitting up the next one and a little bit of the next one. So I'm doing kind of a little bit of both, and because of that my numbers should fall somewhere in between the 7,212 and 2.4. We need to have that so that we don't get to the bottom of an answer and then realize what a mistake we made, okay? Because then it's hard to figure out where your mistake is, and a lot of times what I end up telling students in these situations is just start the problem over. That was all wasted time, do it again. Because it's really hard to find your mistake after you've started. So kind of being able to gauge where the problem is going will help you get your find your mistakes before you get too far in the problem, and then it's easier to say where see where your mistake is when you're in the moment. Okay? So now let's look at what happens when we have to go past the decimal. Alright, so I have 375 and it's divided by 2.4, and that has a tens place, so I need to multiply by 10. Alright, and let me erase a little bit because I need some more room. Run out of room. Okay, so that's going to give me 3,750 divided by 24. So 24 is going to go in the 37 one time. Drop down my 3. Let's make a little guess. 24, I'm going to guess it's going to go in 5 times. Let's just see and go from there. So, and it's okay. You can guess as many times as you want. That only leaves me with a difference of about 15, so I think that's it. You could have tried 4, you could have tried 6, it still would have been okay. It's always good to, what I call it is my example 29 calculator, and I'll do a bunch of what 24 is multiplied by a bunch of different numbers. Alright, so I think I'm probably going to have to go one more on this one. Let's go ahead and test that theory. 12, 13, 14. Yes, I think that is true. So 6 times, and that is going to be 144, which is going to give me a remainder of 60. I'm out of digits, but I still got numbers. Alright, so I'm going to put a decimal in here because now I can add as many zeros as I want. We're going to see how many times this can go into this. So I am going to try, let's try 3. Ooh, too much because that, made that. So let's try another one on our example 29 calculator. And that looks to be the closest we can get. So the closest we can get is 2. That gives me a 12. Alright, so I can drop down another 0. Okay, and I already have that here. That's why I make the calculator, so I don't have to keep doing it. So it goes in 5 times, which is 120, and then I get stopped. So the answer to this one is 156.25. I have a mix of a whole number and a decimal, which means I should have been in between these two numbers. Look at that, I am. What a good check I have. I'm going to erase my calculator. Okay, so the next one, got to multiply everything by 10 because that 5 is in the tens place. I got to get rid of it, which is now going to give me 4,560 divided by 25. So let's go ahead and set this one up. So 25 goes into 45 one time, which is going to give me 20. Drop down the 6. 25 can go into 206 4 times, because I'm thinking of this like quarters and this like $2.06. Well, that's $2. Okay, I'm sure you have a system to do 25s. 25s are pretty easy. Alright, 25 can go into 62 times because 2 quarters make 50 cents. And then I gotta put a decimal place and I can add that extra 0. 25 can go into 100 4 times because there are 4 quarters in either 100 cents or a dollar, however you want to look at it. Alright, so my answer is 142.4. Alright, so this one I still only have to look at this one, at the last place in the second number. So I still only have to divide it by a 10, or multiply it by 10. So this is my new one. If you want, you can do it by 100. It's just going to move the decimal place over 1. It's not going to change the answer. So if you'd rather no decimals at all, multiply both by 100. And you'll get the same exact answer as me, I promise. Alright, 25 goes into 25 one time. Got to get this placeholder taken care of. So 25 goes into 0 times, put in my decimal, drop down my 4. 25 cannot go into 4, so I got to put a 0 here and a 0 here so that I get over into the hundredths place value. Now drop down this 0. 25 can go into 40 one time. Which is 15. I can drop down another 0. 25 can go into 156 times. So the answer is 10.016. Again, it's in the middle of the two numbers because I have a mix of whole numbers and decimals. Alright, I like this 2.5 for some reason. Let's go ahead and multiply everything by 10. Alright, so 25 can go in the 41s. Drop down my 0. 25 can go into 156 times. That's actually going to give me a 0, but I got to drop down this 5. 25 cannot go into 5, so it's 0. Got to put that decimal point, and now I can drop down more digits. 25 can go into 50 twice. Alright, we're nearing the end of this video. Yep, I thought so. So I'm going to multiply everything in this one by 100 because this number goes out to the hundredths place. Okay, so that's now going to give me 360 and then a 9 and a 0 because I'm going to move this 2 places. And that is divided by 45, which is also moved 2 places. Alright, let's set this one up. $45 cannot go into 36, so let's go over. And I am going to guess a 7 for my first try. Alright, let's go one higher. What's it gonna hurt? Just trying it out. that went perfectly. So it's actually an 8. 45 cannot go into 9, so I put my placeholder. 45 can go into 0, into a 90. So let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to try 3 first. Oh, that is way too high, so let's try 2. And it doesn't matter, okay? I knew that 45 plus 45 equals 90, so it had to be 2, but you know, it's good to try out different things. Okay, that's gonna give me a 0. So this one was 802. I didn't have to put in that decimal place. All right, this next one I'm gonna have to multiply by 100 because this goes out to the hundredths place. And that's what I get as a result. I know that 5 times 12 is 60. Remember, that's one of those ones I told you need to memorize because it comes up a lot. Let's try 12 times 4 and see what we get. 48. So that's probably the furthest I can go on the next one. Oh, 2 times 12 would have been 24. So I can only go once here. Alright, so let's try 12 times 8 and see what we get. Can we do more? I don't think so. I think that's the highest I can go with my 12s. And then I can drop down another 0 if I put a decimal place in, and I'm going to kind of have to scoop my math over just ever so slightly, and I'm going to have to see what a 12 would do. So that's going to give me a 7 is going to make it 84. I can add another 0 to my number. 12 goes into 65 times, and that's a even one. So the answer is going to be 5,418 and 75.75. Two more. Almost done this one. This is going to be a longer video. Gotta give myself some more room, so I'm going to erase a little bit. All right. So this goes out to the hundredths place, so I'm going to multiply by the place value 100, and that is going to give me 77,293 divided by 3. All right, so let's go ahead and set this up. 3 goes into 7 2 times. That's going to be 6. Drop down my 2. 3 goes into 12 4 times, which is going to totally get rid of it, but I have to drop down a 9. 3 goes into 9 3 times, which is 9. It's going to totally get rid of it again, but I got to drop down that 3. 3 goes into 3 once. No decimal value needed on this one. That one was pretty easy. Last one. This goes out to the tens place, so I'm going to multiply everything by 10, and that is what I get. First thing I need to do is put that decimal up there. Alright, so 48 can go into 64, I believe only one time. Let's try it. 16, very good. Alright, so if I had to guess, I would guess it goes in 3 times into 160. So let's try that out. Yes, I think that is correct, and I probably can't get another one in. So there we go. Alright, let's go a little bit higher. Let's try 4. bit too high. So let's stick with 3 again. All right, so I'm on the other side of the decimal, so let's go ahead and add some zeros. That's 24. So 5 would go in evenly. All right, so our last answer is 13.35. All right, keep watching it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video.